Many mitzvot of the Torah have specific times during which they can be performed. Sometimes the time is during the day, and sometimes the time might be at night. Because of this, there is an elaborate system of identifying time periods of the day and the night that has been developed in halakha. This system can seem confusing if you're not used to it and you've never heard it explained, and so this video is the beginning of a simplified explanation of the Zmanei HaYom, the times of the Jewish day as they apply to the performance of mitzvot. Here is a simple timeline for the day. Let us assume that this is a Jewish day, and so we're going to read from right to left. And we'll say that the morning will be Hanetz Hachama, sunrise. And then halfway through the day, we'll call halachic noon, Chatzot HaYom. And we'll say that for many purposes the day will end at Shkiat HaChama, otherwise known as sunset. So we have sunrise to sunset with Chatzot in the middle, Hanetz HaChama to Shkiat HaChama. Now, we're going to add a little bit on to each end. To the beginning of the day, we're going to count back 72 minutes. Because the real beginning of the day, when the light really begins to come, is Amud HaShachar, or dawn, or daybreak. Then there's 72 minutes, and then comes sunrise Hanetz HaChama. At the end of the day, Shkiat HaChama may not really be the last landmark that we want. We're not going to end Shabbat at Shkiat HaChama. It is considered a doubt as to whether the day is over yet, and we'll say, for simplified purposes, that there's 42 minutes, a period of 42 minutes between sunset and the time that you can see 3 middle-sized stars in the sky. The stars coming out is called Tzeit HaKochavim, and so we're saying that there's 42 minutes between Shkiat HaChama, sunset, and Tzeit HaKochavim in this simplified model. That period of time, which in English we would call twilight or dusk, is called Bein Hashmashot in Hebrew. And so now we have Amud HaShachar. 72 minutes later we have, after Amud HaShachar, which is dawn, we have sunrise, Hanetz HaChama. Halfway through the day we have halachic noon, Chatzot HaYom. At the end of 12 hours, say, of the day, the end of the day we have Shkiat HaChama, sunset, and 42 minutes later, after the period of Bein Hashmashot, dusk or twilight, we have Tzeit HaKochavim, when 3 medium stars come out. But then, knowing this, just these few items, we can now understand at least 2 Jewish laws and when they should be performed. One is, and we're going to learn that in the first Mishnah of Masechet Brachot, that the earliest time to say the Shema at night is when those stars come out, Tzeit HaKochavim. The Mishnah won't make it so easy as to say the words Tzeit HaKochavim. It will tell us something else which is done at that time, but it means when the stars come out, that's when you can say the Shema. There is another mitzvah which is done not at sunset, but 18 minutes before sunset, and that is Hadlakat Nerot Shabbat, lighting Shabbos candles. Because we don't want to violate Shabbat, we give ourselves the so-called 18 minutes. We do our best to light Shabbat candles 18 minutes before sunset, to leave that little bit of leeway in between. Some places do it even a little bit earlier than that, like in Yerushalayim. And then it's possible to stipulate and make a condition and allow ourselves to continue to do melacha until Shki'ah, or close to it. For example, to be able to drive to shul after lighting candles. But We are careful to light candles, if at all possible, 18 minutes before sunset, before Shki'ah, to allow ourselves time, not, God forbid, to go over the deadline. But then we try to divide the day further for the sake of timing other mitzvot, and we say that the day has 12 hours to it. Each of the yellow lines represents one of the hours of this day. We will learn in the next video that these are not 60-minute hours. These are instead hours that will vary according to the amount of daylight in that particular day. But it's convenient to call them hours, sha'ot, or sha'ot zmaniyot. So now we have daybreak, Amud HaShachar. 72 minutes later, sunrise, Hanetzachama. 6 sha'ot zmaniyot later, we have halachic noon or chatzot. 6 more sha'ot zmaniyot later, we have sunset, shki'at hachama. 42 minutes of bein hashmashot, and finally the stars come out, and it is definitely night, and that, of course, is when we would end Shabbat, according to many community practices. Finally, for this video, we'll add one more time, and that time is sometime between daybreak and sunrise. In between there somewhere is what we call Mishayakir. That sounds like a mishmash or Moshe Kapaya or something, but it simply means the time at which you can recognize or tell Mishayakir the difference between two colors. One opinion says it is the difference between the colors blue and white, and the other says the difference between the colors of blue and green, Techelet and Lavan, or Techelet and Karte. And this is given as how to know, according to one opinion, the earliest time that you can say Shema in the morning. It is later than daybreak. It is earlier than sunrise. In those days, not everybody had timepieces. So it was a lot easier to tell them something that they could do themselves. How could they tell the difference between these colors to say the morning Shema? It might very well be as follows. If somebody happens to be wearing a talit, in those days they wore the talit with the blue dye that came from the chilazon, special sea creature or sea snail. It was very rare, and from which they got a special blue dye that they used for their talit, for the strings. And if they were looking at their tzitzit, they could see both colors, Techelet and Lavan. The other opinion might say that you can tell the Mishayakir time by looking at your landscape. You're outside, there's very little light, but you can tell the difference a little bit later between green of the mountains and the landscape and perhaps the brighter sky, or maybe your tzitzit. This is enough for our first session, to be continued.